Clay, I don't know if you've had any personal hallucinations that you'd care to tell a story about. I was watched this episode, then I was trying to think of a good way to open this and wondering if I had ever hallucinated. And the only one that really comes to mind is like I was young and I was sleeping and I woke up in the middle of the night and I swear that I saw a woman at the end of my bed folding laundry onto my bed.
Oh, weird.
And I turned on the light and it was gone, but then I just kind of sat up for a couple minutes, and I remember my parents came in because they heard me like sort of shuffling around in there or whatever, and they asked what was going on. But that's the only hallucination, I think. Like, even under the influence of things, I don't think I've ever hallucinated outside of that. I was shy, but I maybe it's just something that I've forgotten about and it's not there. But like, I guess, how do you define a hallucination? I Googled it and it just said seeing things that aren't actually there. Call help if you suffer from this problem. So I don't know. Do you have any stories about hallucinating or seeing something, waking up in a fugue state or something like that?
No. I mean, part of me is happy, but part of me is a little bit bummed out by that.
I've never taken LSD. Maybe that's what's a prerequisite.
Yeah. I like the closest thing I've ever come is when I have one of those dreams where you don't realize you're dreaming and things seem real enough.
Right.
But it's actually funny, completely unrelated to this episode. I was talking to my friend Dan, who was at a bachelor party in Mexico, and somehow the conversation turned to DMT.
Yep.
And multiple people started talking about the elves that you see when you are on DMT. And he's like, "What? That's something that happened." And they were all like, "Yes, that's something that happens when you're on DMT." He's like, "All right, whatever." And then while he was reading the Grant Morrison comic book, The Invisibles, which is from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
He came to a panel in the comic where a character talks about the mechanical elves that you see when you're on DMT. So apparently verified.
I never heard anything about that. I don't know. Why would
mechanical elves on DMT confirmed?
Are they always mechanical?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I hope to see them one day. I was saying to him, I'm probably like, I'll probably start doing hallucinogens when I'm like 60.
Yeah.
When I just don't really care about much anymore.
No, I know. I
have kind of wanted to do the sensory deprivation tank thing.
Yes.
Because I hear that's pretty weird.
Yeah. Although people recommend that you're tripping when you do that too. So
oh boy,
it's just
feels like a multicolored psychedelic hat on a hat there.
I've had mushrooms, but that didn't cause me to hallucinate. I guess it's just I don't really know how I would react to such a thing. So it's like because mine is a semi-dream state thing. I think like I was waking up and saw something, but so it's not like I was just sitting at my desk at 2:00 on a Thursday and I saw like a gnome walk across the driveway or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of how. So my stance on ghosts is generally like I'm kind of bummed out that I've never seen one, but I'm also kind of happy I haven't, because if I did, I'd probably lose my fucking mind.
Yeah,
just like the being in the state where I can register that I did see something.
Yeah.
My brain seems to think I saw something that is now, whatever it was, it is now gone. I don't know how I would handle it.
Yeah. No, I don't think I've ever seen a ghost. The closest I come to ghost things or wondering is like weird noises in the house when I'm by myself at night. And it's like, what the hell is that? There's a lot of banging and stuff that goes on in the house when it's just you in there, unfortunately. All right, so let's get to Persistence of Vision, which is my favorite Opeth album. It's the 8th episode of the 2nd season of Star Trek Voyager. It came out on the 30th of October, 1995. Written by Jerry Taylor, directed by James L. Conway. In-universe date is not specifically known, but it's 2372. In this one, Voyager crew members experience disturbing and violent hallucinations. Not women folding clothes at the end of their bunk. In this one, we got knives, we've got infidelities, screaming infidelities, we've got dads being disappointed in you, and we have love that needs to be stated clearly and passionately to each other. So this was a hell of a thing. I don't know where I really stand on this one. It's one of those, there's a definite trope of Star Trek episodes that goes this way, which is that it kind of starts out, the first half is like a weird mind trip, and then it just becomes something else that it's like trying to solve the problem of what's going on. Like that's a very formulaic thing that Star Trek does, and this one fits into it. I think that the starting point for me is that I guess it's weird that maybe we haven't yet hit the point where Voyager has fully abandoned its setup concept, right? And I like in some episodes it feels like that is the case, and maybe this will eventually completely go away. But to me, I thought that at least Voyager, for what this episode is talking about, is like a prime concept of a show to have this kind of episode based around it. At least the stuff that I liked in this one, which is the idea of sort of guilt and I don't even know how to describe the hallucinations. It's sort of like dark thoughts and guilt that you have in your head that get played against you. And just the Voyager being stuck out there, and like I really like Janeway's central problem here, which is that is she fucking a holodeck character while her husband is back home? And I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought that was like a really neat thing to think about in terms of what these characters are going through, and how long are they supposed to wait to get home? Like, what is infidelity at this point, and how pent up is Janeway and stuff like that. But then things change. But I don't know if you had any thoughts about at least the initial stages of this one and the weirdness aspect of it.
I think you're giving this one a lot of credit. I did not particularly care for this. I didn't think it was weird enough to be interesting, and I didn't think it was scary enough to be interesting.
Yeah.
And it does. So it's this kind of episode where I feel like we're probably going to see this set up again in the future, which is someone starts fucking with the ship and the crew has to figure out what's going on, which if you know anything about my pet peeves when it comes to stories, a plot where a character just needs to figure out what's going on is my least favorite kind of story.
Yeah.
One of them anyway. And I think what I was really bothering me about this is like I didn't find the hallucinations particularly interesting, and I didn't feel like the episode was structured in a way where the hallucinations paid anything off. For instance, there's nothing, and I mean this is a lot to ask obviously, but like there's no Paris being mad at his dad doesn't really mean anything to me, because there's nothing touching on why he would be mad at his dad or in the episode.
Yep.
Same with Torres and Chakotay. Tuvok, at least we've had some talk of his family, but even there he's like, you're not my wife. She's like, no, I am your wife. She's like, no, you're not my wife. And even Harry Kim, who's we know his fiance or his girlfriend or whatever, and all Harry Kim gets is, I see my girlfriend.
Yeah, I see her topless,
and that's it.
Yeah,
and like I don't know. I wasn't really dialed into. I agree that the idea of Janeway grappling with the idea of infidelity and stuff like this is pretty interesting. I just don't think that they do anything with it. Because she's not the central character of the story. Like, she gets taken out like everybody else does, and you end up with this weird fucking telepathy subplot with Cass.
Yeah, I think Janeway is the main character for the first half, but one of the big one of the big issues with this episode is that it tries to give everyone a piece of the story, and then eventually Cass becomes the main character for some reason. And I think that's just a bad idea. If this had focused exclusively on Janeway, I would have thought this would have been a pretty good episode.
Same. Yeah, agree. And I thought it was going that way because it took her so long to get overtaken.
Yeah.
I thought something involving the ghost going into her was going to allow her to repel this force or
antibodies,
something.
Ghostly antibodies. Yeah.
Ghost antibodies. But that didn't happen. And then you just get this thing with Kes that doesn't really track and is another thing that's wrapped up in technobabble.
Use the mirror. Look into his mirror eyes. Yeah.
And before that, you've got, I mean, I did think it was funny where the doctor is like, you need to type in the algorithm of blah, 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 blah. And she's like, okay, how do I do that? And he goes, I actually don't know.
Let me check the Wikipedia page for this one. Yeah.
And, ultimately also, it doesn't help that once they reveal the culprit, they're kind of like, why'd you do this to us? And he goes, I was just kind of fucking around.
Yeah.
And then he just like leaves.
They're not even sure if he's real by the end of it.
Yeah. And like, was he after something? Or, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, this is the kind of episode where I don't mind that there's no plot if you go all the way into the weird stuff and all the way into the subtext and story.
Yeah.
But they don't really do that. And I think if you had focused more on Janeway and really gotten weird with it and really gotten into her head, I think that could have been really interesting, because then it doesn't matter how you get out of it. Like, if you want to still do the Kes stuff, fine, whatever. But I would say you got to be bouncing back and forth between Kes trying to figure out the technobabble bullshit while you're getting weird with Janeway about her feelings about her husband or her ghostly holodeck lover or whatever.
Holographic lover. Yeah. No, because I
Holographic Lover, I think, is a Judas Priest album from the mid-'80s.
One of their all music top-rated albums. I don't think this is a particularly good episode, mostly because I think it fails to execute on what it should be focused on, and it almost seems like they are. It's a weird one because it feels like it doesn't have a particularly strong grasp on what is going on in the episode, so therefore it has a hard time explaining what hallucinations would be relevant for the crew to have, or like how this all ties together. The reason I like Janeway is because, like I was talking about, Janeway is the only one that really fits into. Well, B'Elanna and Chakotay actually works too, but apparently I was reading this is the only time this is brought up in this show, so this is not going to recur.
Great.
But,
awesome.
So we can ignore that. But the Janeway one, at least, is tied to Voyager's central concept, right? Like that they're very far away from their family. They're trying to get back home, but things are going to have to change on this ship in order to survive the trip back home. Like that seems implicit within how the show is supposed to be set up and how it was originally conceived. And I think that the Janeway one is a good Star Trek question of, are you cheating if this is a hologram that you're doing? And I think they even did a good job of tying in the fact that Janeway's holo novel stuff that she's into is Victorian era female written like repressed love stories. Like it all fits. So it works. Like the reason that she's enjoying that holo novel on this journey is because she has this incredibly pent up sexual frustration about not being with her husband, who, there's not a lot that they've done to really establish that relationship or whatever, but I would just buy it as a real thing that she's going through. And almost like if there's a real character on the crew or something, like I just think that there's a lot of really interesting stuff that you can get into about like, how are you, when you're unable to communicate with your spouse or whatever, or your partner, how are you supposed to ethically get through this situation that you need to be happy and get home at the same time, and you can't tell them or anything like that. They don't know what's going on. I thought it was interesting, and I thought that it was a good setup for Janeway, but they just abandoned Janeway, unfortunately, halfway through, and it becomes one of these things where it ends with a really sort of like cliche at this point, good Voyager scene that I don't feel really encapsulates what was going on to get to that point. So it's a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, I think it would have worked more if they had really leaned into the Janeway stuff and also transferred the holodeck character to, say, Chakotay or someone who was real. So now you can kind of extrapolate that out that, it's not just that she's horny for this holodeck character. She's horny for someone she works with. Now you're getting into actual infidelity, possibly, or the actual infidelious thoughts of infidelity.
I was shocked that the
infidelio.
It's a good password. I was shocked that I could have swore once she started hallucinating that the holodeck character was going to become a member of the crew. Like he wouldn't even be in someone's body. He was just going to show up as like Lieutenant so-and-so who'd always been there for whatever, like the whole time. And there was going to be as you're saying, like Janeway's losing touch between the connection of what is real and what isn't on the holodeck by that point. So the relationship becomes extra dubious to her, like morally about whether or not this should be happening. They don't do that, like, too bad.
Yeah, and also like the holodeck stuff, I don't know. I feel like it only gets you so far because you don't want to. Because the point of this episode is that this alien is getting into their innermost, deepest thoughts or whatever. And if it just turns into Janeway's got the hots for a holodeck guy, it's like, I don't, that. If she came home tomorrow and she told her husband, I kind of had sex with a holodeck guy a couple times, he'd be like, yeah, no, that's fine.
Do you think so?
I've been doing?
Yeah, maybe in this universe. I think it's it's maybe a tough one because it's hard to grok outside of this universe about what's going on. But I think that it's a good one in line with that TNG episode where we meet Barclay for the first time and he's been replicating crew members that he knows.
That's different, though. Like, that's more in line what I'm talking about, where these are actual people that he has actual relationships with.
Yes.
That he is actively playing out fantasies with.
But that's only upsetting to the people being recreated, not to the spouse of Barclay in that situation. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's one where I think if you told your wife you were doing that, I don't think she'd be super thrilled.
I made your sister.
Yeah. But like in this situation, I don't know if you really get there with the just the holodeck stuff. So I do like the struggle that she's going through. I just wish they had pushed it further and made it a little bit more even if she's not horny for Chakotay, like this guy pushing her there to say that, oh no, are you really just horny for this holodeck guy? Aren't you really horny for someone who you actually work with, Janeway?
Sure. Yeah.
Like then she starts really, because then she's unsure of herself and that kind of thing. But yeah, I like the concept in that sense, but I think it just, unfortunately, it turns into just we got to figure out what's going on type story, and you get rid of Janeway halfway through.
Yeah,
and it just it doesn't really like. I actually liked the presentation of the alien on the view screen. I thought that was cool.
Yep.
But also that doesn't really, if this was a weirder, trippier episode, I wouldn't mind so much that at the end he's like, oh, I don't know, maybe I was never here at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if they totally earned that, but
yeah, I wouldn't have minded that if the Janeway focus had been priority. Like I don't need this alien to really exist or to be certain that he exists or anything like that, because I think that if you focus it on Janeway's thoughts of infidelity, it becomes irrelevant as to whether or not that alien exists, because you could just say that even if he doesn't, it's still something that's planted in her mind, obviously, and she's stressed out about it.
It's it's another one too where I think it gets stronger if you spend the first 10 minutes showing stress amongst the crew.
Yeah.
Instead of just Janeway needs to take a week off or whatever.
Well, the doctor's very small, which is incredibly stressful.
Hilarious, yes.
It's a good joke. They just keep coming back to Tiny Doctor.
Yeah. But, I feel like you could have used some of that time at the beginning to drop these seeds that these other characters are also dealing with stress. So when this guy shows up and he starts pulling this stuff out of them, then it lands better than just, hey, don't you hate your dad, Tom?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I do hate my dad. Thanks for
He's a colossal asshole. And it's interesting that he begets. I'm pretty certain that the actor playing the dad gets replaced by that actor from Seinfeld who is not Kruger. There's an actor from Seinfeld who eventually takes over that role for that guy, so he looks similar to him, but it's not the same actor.
Interesting.
I would have just thinking of redoing it. I think this is one of those episodes that if this was a modern Star Trek show, it would probably open with 10 minutes of Janeway flashing back to time with, I think the guy's name is Mark, her husband or whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of just, they have that incredibly awkward photo where they look like two people who met each other 5 minutes ago have to pose for a photo with a dog and pretend that that's it. Like, that photo is doing a tremendous amount of work. And flashing back to, some sort of, it would obviously be a dramatic flashback where it's just before she leaves and they have a fight or something, like to be the really cliche stock thing. Like there's some sort of, issue between the two of them, and then it moves into this thing where it's Janeway having to consider what's ethical to do in that situation. But obviously they don't have the time and they can't get that actor back in the show and things like that. So we are left with what we end up with.
Well, I actually think it's better for it that they don't do that stuff because I actually think it works pretty well as it is, because like I think going out of your way to show a flashback like that kind of puts a bit too fine a point on it, where when you've got her you keep referencing this photo and they kind of keep bringing him up in dialogue and then he shows up on the view screen. I think Kate Mulgrew is a good enough actress where she can get across the worry and the conflict, the inner conflict, without having to go to let's show them get in a fight before she leaves. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's more interesting that way too, where it's like, yeah, it's not like they were on bad terms or anything. It's just she's been out there. She's going to be here for 75 years. Yeah. And she's still, we kind of made the eyes wide shut joke before, but as far as we know, she hasn't done anything yet. Right. Yep. She's thinking about it, clearly.
No, this material won't allow that to happen. Those characters in those stories don't have actual sex. They just pine for it.
Yeah. And so, she kind of goes on a bit of... If this episode was more like Eyes Wide Shut, I'd like it a lot more. For a number of reasons.
We have to do Eyes Wide Shut at some point.
Tuvok's got the lute. He can play some weird backwoods monk music on. There's a certain day I'd like to be on stage, everybody. I think you know which day it is.
Overdosing prostitute in Chakotay's quarters that has to be resuscitated. All that good stuff. And it's Christmas on the ship and everything's happy. Yeah. I mean, it's not really... The Kess stuff and the secondary hallucinations aren't really worth talking about, I suppose, because I consider them to be a distraction from what's going on.
It also my biggest problem with the Kess thing at the end is like she's hallucinating, but she's talking to the doctor over the view screen. Yeah, and at no point does she turn to the doctor and go, "Doctor, is there someone standing behind me or not?" Yes, yeah. Is Neelix standing behind me being a dickhead? And he'd be like, "No, he's not. It's some weird wrinkle guy." Yep. Yeah. It's a weird cut, too, because it goes from that hallucination thing to she literally standing talking to the doctor on the view screen. And it's a weird, jarring reality thing or whatever. It's like it's hard to match those two shots where you're going from a hallucination into something that's actually happening right in front of her. Yeah, it's I don't know. Like I sort of liked. I found it like a little bit creepy about the people who are just standing there in places. I kind of like that. There's nothing to do. That's nothing to do with anything. I just thought it was kind of a neat effect. But outside of that, like, I don't really like the Paris one because I don't think it ties in at all. The Chakotay and B'Elanna one I do like because I think that adds an interesting wrinkle, or could have added an interesting wrinkle, knowing that it doesn't do anything. It's a terrible soap opera written scene that they have together, but I liked what they were implying. But that kind of works, though, for the kind of scene that it is, to be a little bit hack and a little bit melodramatic. The slow kiss, the slow, passionate kiss. And then that's how you get across passion, is you you get very close to the other person's mouth.
Still talking. Yeah.
And you talk directly into their mouth because the mouth is the most sensitive ear on the body.
It is. There's 3 of your ear bones are in your lips. The Kes stuff, they're building up her powers, I guess, because that's kind of a runner for her. She has powers that is going to be developed at some point. This is another vague entry of she has powers that are, she's a superpower psychic or something.
Tuvok is helping me with my telepathy. I was like, what? What
does Neelix know about this? Does Neelix know?
Is the telepathy something that we've set up before? I can't remember.
Tom Paris is helping find my inner self. He's like, what? What is going on? Yeah, I don't. Kes really gets around. I'm finding her to be a disreputable woman at this point in the show with my incredibly conservative social takes.
Yeah, it's just the telepathy thing caught me off guard. I'm sure it's something they've touched on before, but honestly, I couldn't remember at the time.
Yeah.
But just the way that she just dropped that line, "Oh, Tuvok is helping me with my telepathy." I was like, "Okay, I guess that's happening." I didn't realize she was a psychic.
Yeah, they've been hinting at it. I forget what the episodes were that she's done it, but they've done it once or twice. And it's fine. I just think it's distracting, mostly on a technical level, because it cuts away from Janeway and it just becomes this Kes talking to the Doctor situation that solves everything. And the alien reveal isn't interesting enough to save that. So you end up with just, you end up with the nice scene with B'Elanna and Janeway, which I think is what the episode kind of should have been about. It's just, it's unfortunate that Voyager didn't want to focus on that. I don't know why. It's just, it's the... I don't know if this is really unique to Voyager or if I'm looking for a more mature take than Voyager wants to go in at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I can understand a hesitancy in 90s Star Trek of not wanting to talk about Janeway's sexual frustration and stuff, but it's the only way that the show makes sense to me, really, because this is a show that seems designed to be about really interpersonal conflicts with each other.
Sure.
Like the crew has to evolve in a way. It's like it's sort of like the setup to how Deadwood on HBO is set up. Like the characters have to come together, but they all have different outlooks on life. But to create this new thing that they're living together, they have to adapt to each other. And it feels like Voyager should do that. It can't handle the content because it might be too adult for this era of TV and Star Trek in particular.
The real Deadwood was inside us the whole time.
I know. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. I think there's ways you could get into it without being like explicit about it, obviously. But I think it's just another missed opportunity on a show that's kind of built out of missed opportunities so far. A lot of Kes. We've been getting a lot of Kes the last couple episodes.
Yeah, she's.
I think she's okay, but she's wearing a little thin the way that they're handling her in the last few episodes.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with her earlier. I think the performance did a lot of carrying. I don't really like the way she's being developed into a wonderkind or whatever, like a superpowered kind of creature that's going to be hanging out with them. She's fine outside of that. I just think there are more important. She's a main cast member, so I understand why they have to do this. But I feel like there are just better characters to put in that situation, or just keep it Janeway and go from there.
Yeah.
Persistence of Vision. I guess that's it. We can go to patron thoughts now. If you want to support the show, if you enjoyed the show so far, halfway through the episode now, you enjoyed our coverage of Persistence of Vision. You can support the show at patreon.com/the Pensky File. It's the best way to do it. You get extra stuff, extra content. There's like 150 podcasts up there now. Extra stuff all over the place, and you can download them all and listen to them. So patreon.com.
Do we have an official count?
We do.
On Pensky File episodes, like total?
Like with the real podcasts and everything?
Yes, yeah.
We would. I don't know what it is, or I would have to sort of do the rough calculation.
Yeah, do the rough math probably.
Yeah.
It's got to be over 300, right?
It's
each one of those shows went like at least 100 episodes.
I mean, they're closer to 200. We might be across all the shows close to 1,000 podcasts.
Holy shit!
Yeah, yeah. So We're getting up there. And 150 more can be found at patreon.com/thepensky if you're so interested. So we'll go to Patreon comments. Textile Bear says, persistence of vision, yet another episode with lots of mysterious things happening and a resolution which, while not too disappointing, also isn't all that interesting.
Yeah.
Which is what it is. Here's Norman Buckwald. I'll send it over to you post-haste.
Finally, Janeway's lame Bronte holodeck novel gets interesting by seeming to cross over into reality. In fact, the most interesting parts of this episode was when it did focus on Janeway. Once imaginary persons were seen by everyone, it got a bit too much, and Wes and Clay, the shipping of Chakotay and B'Elanna was thankfully scrapped much quicker than Archer and T'Pol. Still, the potential of Kes and what exactly her species' abilities was definitely intriguing. What exactly are her species? Still, the potential of Kes and what exactly are her species' abilities was definitely intriguing. But I'm not really here, villain. Yawn. 3.5 mini doctors out of 5.
I like the shipping of Chakotay and B'Elanna.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Based on how those characters have interacted to this point, I can totally understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I am really not giving this Bronte holodeck thing much of a shake because every time they start it, I just assume the whole episode is going to be in there. And I immediately check out. I don't know why, but I keep thinking they're going to do like, oh, this is the episode where we just do the whole thing as a Victorian novel, and I'm like, okay. But of course, they never do that.
No, what's interesting to me about it is that we've seen so much of it, and literally nothing happens in the holodeck novel. It's like he's like, take the children away, and they do, and he's like, I love you, and then someone calls her on the comm badge, and she freezes it, and that's the end. That's been literally every bit of this Bronte novel that we've been watching has been incredibly unenergetic, and like it's not to say everything has to be is a modern remake, but I feel like if you were to remake this show, there is a way that a very thoughtful show would sort of weave her holodeck across a season where the episode that would be a backdrop to something, and this show's not doing it. It's just her thing to do.
I would also like, what I would have liked to have seen done differently with this is if you did weave it across seasons, have her start off like really not being into it,
right?
Because she's got a lot on her mind. She's not the kind of person necessarily who likes this kind of stuff, and so but it's the only program they had on the books at the time, or I don't know, some bullshit reason. And but as the more she does it, she ends up getting more and more into it, to the point where she's like, you see her at the end of the season breathlessly talking to this guy when he's like, I must go back to the city.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, it's tough to unavoid, or it's tough to be. I see all roads of that kind of story only leading to Ex Machina, right? It's like reality becomes difficult to tell, and like the machine from the human is difficult to differentiate.
These children need a firm hand, Catherine.
Kyle Barrett says, persistence of vision, the idea of Janeway struggling under the stresses of command deserves a deeper examination, and the episode culminates in simply the crew going nuts and just needing to wake up and smell the psychosis, but I won't complain too much because after a run of terrible episodes, at least this one is fun to watch. Critiquing it is like a man dying of thirst suddenly becoming a mineral water critic. I don't know whether it was always the plan to use the holographic kids inspired by the turn of the screw in a ghost story on Voyager, but even if it's accidental, it's a neat connection to the source material, and there are as are the hints of Janeway's sexual repression. I call bullshit on Kim saying, I see my girlfriend Libby. I bet he saw his mom and lied because he's desperate for people to know he's got a girlfriend. And the episode gets one thing right above all else. Cucumber sandwiches are indeed horrifying. 3 both ands from Star Wars out of 5. Cucumber sandwiches are not... I'm sorry?
Why Bothans? Why does he reference Bothans?
Bothans are the aliens in this episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Many of them died to bring us the information on the Death Star.
Oh, is that what? So do you ever see a Bothan or Bothan in Star Wars?
No.
Or they just referenced?
As far as I know, we've never seen a Bothan in any stuff. I could be completely wrong. I apologize if I am, but I don't remember ever seeing one.
We don't have cucumber sandwiches over here. I've always enjoyed them when I go to Britain. Though I find them they seem like they'd be horrible, but I didn't find them to be horrible.
What do you put on them?
I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but they do put something on it. Let me see here. Cucumber sandwich. Is there a traditional one? Cream cheese. Yeah.
Apparently, the Bothans have appeared in the background of The Last Jedi. They're kind of like a dog-looking alien, sort of like a werewolf, sort of.
Sure.
Kind of looks like those weird half-human, half-wolf deviant art drawings that usually end up having like giant furry dicks, or so I've been told.
Oh, I'm very familiar with the both ends then. Yeah, I understand. This is Poindexter G.
Janeway's boring-ass holodeck program gets slightly more interesting when the characters leave the holodeck. That boy still freaks me out. He ain't right. The evil psychic alien thing is fine. It just never really grabs me. Voyager does, though, continue its trend of really well-written episode closing scenes.
Brandon Neal Howell says, I'm torn about this one. Half of it's hokey, but it does scary very well before it goes over the top. I'm never quite sure what the Bothians' intention, I don't know, I'm giving up on whether or not this is Bothian or Bothian. Intention was one or whether any of it mattered. This seems a rehearsal for scientific method to me. By the way, Henry Burley is one of Picard's sons in the Nexus. 3 knife-wielding housekeepers out of 5.
Fun.
Yes. I might have said that a couple episodes ago. I think the kid in the holodeck program is the child in Generations.
Yeah. I just, like, it doesn't interest me to bring this. Like, I found it kind of spooky a little bit as they were doing it, but
yeah,
ultimately it's like, I mean, until the alien shows up, it just feels like another holodeck outside the holodeck thing, and I don't really give a shit about that. They've done it a million times.
No, I didn't find it too scary. Like I would have found it scary if we had gone back to what we were saying. Or I know you kind of wanted another way of maybe have the ghost inhabit Chakotay, but if that guy had showed up, I would have been a little bit more creepy than just seeing the flower cup that she was using or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah.
This is Jonathan J.K. Morris.
Best moment was Tom resisting his dad right until near the end because he just had to say something, being tricked and getting him in the trance. Made me think Tom was immune until he bit back. Actually, my favorite part of this episode is when Tuvok abruptly hangs up the phone and does the "you're breaking up" as an excuse to hang it up. What happened? I've created a fake disturbance in the transmission, and so we could hang the phone up and talk secretly.
He gave it a rating, which I didn't send, which is 2 gotcha toms out of 5. Eric McGowan.
Based on Star Wars fandom, StarWars.fandom.com, the Bothans do not show up in person in any live action Star Wars stuff. They only are mentioned by name in The Mandalorian and in Return of the Jedi. Is
that just a difference of opinion from the one that said they're in The Last Jedi?
I saw a picture of one that said it was from The Last Jedi. I don't know if that's, I don't know. I didn't do much research.
Okay. Well,
real time, but
we'll get to the bottom of this. Yeah. Leave a comment below if the both hands have been seen in Star Wars. Eric McGowan says, the surreal and horror-themed episode with some good twists and turns that I always enjoy revisiting, despite the lame scenes with Janeway's holonovel. I like that Kess is able to save the day in this one, although it always feels like the writers sometimes had a hard time writing what to do with her powers. Groppler John Zorn is the next comment. Comes to you.
Yes, Kess is magic. Yes, Janeway has some less than aspirational notions of entertainment. Yes, the Scooby-Doo ending. Unlike most of Season 2, this one kept me engaged for the whole episode. Much better to have a one-dimensional villain to interact with at the end than another kinoplasmic subspace warp particle fountain to throw an inverted neutrino protein nodule through the Bussard collectors.
Excellent line reading of the technobabble.
Thank you. While I don't think I'd seek it out for a rewatch, I enjoyed Mulgrew's acting, and the structure held my interest. Glad Trek's go-to female Romulan actor is still getting some work. A high 3. Who's the go-to Romulan?
That's a good question. I don't know. Glad Trek's go-to female Romulan actor.
Trying to find who played the alien at the end, but I didn't see anything on IMDb. Maybe is it the alien?
Let me see. So, oh no, it's Mrs. Templeton. It must be.
Sure.
Yes, it's the knife wielding person from the holodeck adventure.
Ah, gotcha.
She is Commander Toreth in Face of the Enemy and Sub-Commander Taurus in TNG's Contagion. Yep. So that's that answered. Next one is Changeling. Let's play a game of whose story is it? All right, contestants, it is A, Janeway's because she's the main focus through most of it. B, Cass because her telepathy saves the day. Or C, Torres's because she has the revelation that she wants to bang Chakotay. Judges, who cares? I usually like Mind F Star Trek, but this episode just falls apart at the end. I like the little looks inside the characters' heads. I just wish that they were in a different story. 2 out of 5. Why 2? Because I can. Aaron Million is the very next comment that we are going to read here. Oops. There you go.
Voyager, at least so far, does not do terror or horror very well. I think Enterprise did it better, and so did TNG. As an example, the scene in Night Terrors where Crusher is in the morgue and some of the cadavers keep sitting up under their sheets. But come on, everybody knows the best horror scene with Crusher is when the old lady sits up out of the coffin. Sub Rosa.
Or when she orgasms in that episode is also a good horror scene.
But Voyager's effort here is pretty bland. 2 Victorian holodeck characters out of 5.
Artorius says, Janeway gets her kicks from a steamy ROM period piece mastery fantasy. Evil alien gets his from watching other people's fantasies. Someone has a dungeon porn addiction. Good God, the minute we invent holo programs, our society is doomed. 3 British lords out of 5. Yep, it's the, there's all that sort of market literature and scientific literature that men like visual, women like reading about their fantasies. This is Clef, Persistence of Vision.
This episode is not... I forgot this is a poem, so I have to do it right. This episode's not what it seems when an alien manifests the crew's dreams. It goes from Jane Eyre to a Freddy Krueger scare. All that it's missing are some deeper themes.
And I missed this. I'll let you finish the reviews. I need to put these in there.
4 great character moments out of 5.
There we go. Undiscovered Mugato says, shit, Janeway's back in the Regency and now it's bleeding into reality. Please, God, no. But really, why was Janeway affected so long before anyone else? A rare case of the episode getting better as it went along, up until that last moment when everything literally evaporated, including the plot. Are the Botha even something to be concerned with? Were they ever? And how many Bothas died to bring us the plans for the Borg sphere? Too many false reality episodes too soon, out of 5.
Yeah, they're really going to that well quite a bit lately.
Which one? Sorry.
The false reality.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's making me feel like they've already run out of ideas for this. For this show.
Yeah. This is Jaron Hatch.
Great hook and creepy setup, but boy, does this episode go nowhere fast. They make a point at the end about how sharing personal stuff is the best way to deal with it, so why wasn't the episode actually about that? Sending out a pulse from the warp core is the least interesting climax possible to do in a Star Trek episode, second only to reconfiguring the main deflector dish. They should have just done a haunted house episode where Janeway gets lost in her gothic fantasy. Instead of finding a magic rose in the West Wing, she finds her long-lost beloved Mark and spooky shenanigans ensue. Now that's the kind of hot trash I'm here for. You and me both. 2.5 Bothan Spies out of 5.
Doesn't have the powerful male antagonist in that setup. Did you ever see Shades of Grey? Did you ever watch the movie?
50 Shades of Grey?
50 Shades of Grey.
Or the first one, just Shades of Grey.
the prequel, Shades of Grey, 50 Shades.
I did not, no.
Yeah. I didn't see it either, but I know very little about what that is. I know that my mother-in-law read the book, which I thought was hilarious that she admitted to that. Just because I'm probably imagining more scandal in it than is actually in there, which is what made it funny to me. So I don't actually know. Maybe it's not all that graphic or something in the book.
That was kind of. Was there a reason you brought that up?
Why? Just because it's similar to the Bronte Hollow novel.
Oh,
it's like
okay.
a powerful man, and
yes.
she's subjugated to him.
I thought you were just like looking over at your bookshelf.
I'm watching this video as we read through these comments.
My to read pile. No, it always seemed to me like the kind of kinky book that people who never really got out very much found kinky.
Yeah, maybe if you haven't been on the internet recently in the right places. Yeah,
soccer mom kinky.
Although this does tie into the kids were watching Disney Plus, and we're like, what do you want to watch? And they said they wanted to watch the shark movie, and it was called it's like a Discovery Channel movie episode, and it's called like 50 Shades of Shark or something like that. And Amy goes, "Why is it titled that?" I was like,
50 Shades of Great White. That would be good.
It might be. It's something like that. So it makes a pun. Title. And Amy's like, "Why is it titled like that?" I'm like, I don't know. Is it just, are they just making a pun based on the shark thing? And they're going to give us this kind of a story? And they're like, I don't know. I'll just turn it on. The kids will enjoy it, I'm sure. First scene, shark rape.
What?
The male shark bites this female shark and drags her to the bottom of the ocean. A second male shark comes up and welcomes himself inside the premises.
God. Oh my God. I want to see the rest of that, where the female shark gets revenge, like Jodie Foster
with a shotgun. And so at that point, after the close up on the throbbing shark member, I ran up and turned the thing off. And Alistair and Simon said, "What was this? What was happening in that movie right there?" And I said, "I don't know."
Vibrating cloacas all over the place. I was gonna say you got to the end of it, and then Alistair turned and said, there wasn't a single ball gag on that
show. But that's what I get for saying, sure, what kind of mature content could be on Disney Plus? I'll just allow all of this onto the screen. And apparently it's that.
I mean, you didn't even realize that the image they chose was just a full frontal shot of a shark jumping out of the water.
I just thought it was algorithmically created, and this is just going to get the clicks or whatever. But no, it's
what is this? What is this? Disney Plus UK?
Scandalous. Royo, final comment says, "Well, this episode doesn't meet the highs of projections, which was tightly paced. This episode is equally memorable to me for its distinct visuals. The set for the alien command bridge being a backlit temple with a central figure shrouded in shadow was particularly striking, and the fact that the aliens' method of aggression being psychological warfare seems to be a fresh idea. Unlike the TOS episode, this side of paradise where the crew gets hopped up on spores and only Kirk can resist the mind control because he's Kirk, here the captain is not somehow immune, and it's interesting to see every last one of the command staff fall prey to delusion. And it's an interesting and logical inversion to have the doctor's head on straight while everyone else is being gaslit with reality-bending psionic attacks. Further, we get some nice character work with Tom Paris's overbearing Admiral Dad to Janeway's crazy work schedule as a starship captain and her ever-present temptation to cheat on her boyfriend with that fantasy bowl of coffee ice cream. 3.5 pox-laden Neelixes out of 5. It's not cheating if that coffee ice cream was never really there.
That's true.
Thanks, everybody, for leaving your thoughts at patreon.com/the Pensky File. So, Clay, what are you going to give this one? I feel like the listeners came out to a 2 to 3 average, probably a 2.5 or something like that. Where are you going to land?
I'm a low 2 on this one. Mm-hmm. This was not working for me. It's got some interesting stuff kind of at the top, but just like structurally, I didn't find it very interesting. And as a story overall, I didn't find it very interesting. And it's not like egregiously bad or anything, but it's just not, I don't know. It didn't hook me at all.
Had moments for me. I was hoping for bigger things than what came out of this. We don't give 0.5s on this, or at least I have never given a 0.5. So I'll give it a 2, but it feels really to me like it's a 2.5. It's like right between being okay and being 2. I'll go low, though, because I think that the second half is not really all that interesting to me, unfortunately. All the good ideas are in the first half, and they don't really do anything with it after that. So a little bit of a failed execution and a failed concept layout and stuff like that. But I do like the ideas that they're playing with in this one. I thought they could have been a really, really neat, interesting Janeway episode. And it struck me, I don't know what the last Janeway-focused episode was while I was watching this. I don't feel it happens all that often.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
Yeah.
Also, as much as I'm mad that they didn't commit to the interesting stuff that they had working in this episode. I'm even more mad that they didn't commit to that hairstyle from the last one.
Yeah, back in the
we're
bun.
back to the bun.
Tight. She's wound up,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Maybe she just got done
work.
fucking in that last episode, let her hair down a little bit.
It actually the hair does work better for the content in this one than the other hair would have.
Yeah, that's a tight pony, as they say. Tight bun. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Patreon.com/The Pensky Files. Support the show there. Listen to all the other shows on this little network that we have here. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
I hate the internet generally. Well, it's a love-hate relationship, really.
Yeah.
But especially social media, I find concerning.
It's the only place you can download pirated copies of 50 Shades of Grey, though, Clay. It can't be all that bad.
That's what I've heard. Straight to your child's Kindle.
And shark porn. You're not going to get that not on the internet.
Yes. But one of the things that I love is just casually scrolling through Twitter. One of the people I follow went on an 8-tweet thread comparing Steely Dan's Pearl of the Quarter to Toto's Rosanna and why Rosanna sucks.
Oh, okay.
And it's just one of those really specific tweet threads where it's like, I feel like a handful of people in the world would like to read this, and oddly enough, I'm one of them. So, it's he doesn't think that the lyrics to Toto's Rosanna are quite as good as the
Steely Dan's masterpiece.
Yes, Steely Dan's dark sarcasm and sardonic lyrics.
Steely Dan is possibly, I have not put a lot of thought into this, possibly the biggest band that I know zero about and could identify. I know Asia, I think. That's like the only Steely Dan song I could probably identify.
Oh, sure. Yeah. They're fun to get into if you want to, because they've got they are renowned for their session players who played on their albums.
I've seen the other thing I know about them. I saw a video where they talk about, I think they talk about the Rosanna Groove. No, they're talking about Bernard Purdie in it. Purdie played on one of their albums or something. And they were the nerdiest fucking looking guys I've ever seen in my life. I was like, I do not want to listen to Steely Dan if this is what's going on.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good stuff. If you're into yacht rock at all, a lot of the yacht rock guys played on Steely Dan stuff, and Toto. All those guys are mixed up in there. And you've got Michael McDonald. Michael McDonald rose to prominence through backing vocals on Steely Dan songs and stuff.
Yeah.
So you can really get your music nerd on if you really want to, and be kind of pretentious about stuff. Aside from that, both of my issues of White Knight, Red Hood should be out at this point. If you picked one up, thank you. I hope I didn't make you cry too much in the second one. Actually, no, I hope I did make you cry in the second one, because, and I did my job right. But yeah, aside from that, Amanda and I are continuing our second string of Stephen King. In August, we are doing Sometimes They Come Back. July was Maximum Overdrive. June was Christine. So we did a couple killer car movies, and now we're on to whatever Sometimes They Come Back is. But it might be another killer car movie. I actually don't know. I haven't watched it yet. So
how many episodes? How many issues are in the Red Hood thing?
Just 2.
Oh, it's just 2.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a single 48-page comic, like a double-sized issue.
Yep.
But Sean needed an extra month on his book, so we split it into 2.
Gotcha.
And which ironically it didn't matter anyway because of paper shortages. It got bumped a week anyway. So they bookended August, which is kind of fun. So the first one came out the first week, and the second one will come out like the last week of August, or has come out the last week of August.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. Because about the first one, obviously, and I was like, I was trying to see if there was a way to save the as they come out, and I only saw the second one coming out, and I was like, oh, maybe I just can't be this efficient if I'm going to do that. So,
I hope maybe someday we'll get to do more.
Yeah.
I've been trying to angle to maybe do some more, but he's telling me to slow down a bit. But you gotta strike while the iron is hot, man.
Yeah. You need more both hand spies. And you'll be good to go. Well, good. You guys can check it out. If you can't buy a comic book, you can. If you can't find a comic book, it is available on the internet. You can get it on your Kindle or something, or put it on your iPad. It's out there and it's able to do it. And that's what I did. I like the little Kindle function of reading the comic books, which is that it opens one panel.
Oh, the panel,
I suppose.
the panel thing.
It's kind of neat to see that. And then once you do that, I can go back and like look at the whole thing and to see how it looks as a whole. But it's neat to, I don't know, guide you, I suppose, that way.
It's an interesting function because I feel like it was born of the era of smartphones, where looking at an entire comic book page on a smartphone isn't really practical because then you got to zoom in and kind of like shift around.
Yeah.
But and with iPads and tablets now, you can get a full screen shot of the page, which is actually bigger probably than the actual comic book.
Yes, yeah.
But actually what's nice about it is for people who aren't familiar with how reading comics works, because it can be a little bit confusing if you've never really done it before. It does guide you through and make it a little bit easier to see like, oh, okay, I see how this works now.
Yeah. I think it makes you look at each one for longer than you would if you were looking at the page in total.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because it's like I take a minute to like look at the actual image that's in front of me instead of sort of reading too quickly through it, which can be the problem that I might have if the whole page is laid out. But yeah, it was on there. You can get it on Amazon. It has Clay's name on the cover. That's how you'll identify it, besides the red hood on it. Which is the first cover image. It's not... It's the profile of him holding the gun, right? Is that the first cover? Yes. Okay.
That's the first cover, yeah. That's the Sean's cover. There's 3 covers for the first book.
Oh, there are?
Yep. There's one by Sean, one by the interior artist Simone DeMeo, and another one by an artist named Olivier Coipel.
Gotcha. Interesting. Check them out, guys. It's all out there. And otherwise, we are done. Thanks very much for listening. I don't know what the next episode of Star Trek Voyager is. It could be something tremendously exciting. I'm going to click, and it's never correct. Oh, it's Tattoo. It is Tattoo. So that's it. It's a Chakotay episode. So let's get ready for that.
Fun.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast about persistence of vision. May the audio image of this show linger in your vision for the rest of the night. Something like that. See ya.